Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast with Jay Gordon Duncan. And if you're wondering why the J, the answer is, I'm not a bagpipe player. And if that joke doesn't make any sense, I encourage you to check out episode 0, where I explain that joke, as well as the purpose of the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast, where we talk about faith, family, fitness, finances, and sometimes fun. Hey friends, thanks so much. Welcome back to the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast. Again, I got to start every single episode by saying thank you. You're listening, you're watching. It means an absolute ton to me. I don't ever take it for granted. And again, ever since we started doing this, there's been a lot more of you. So thank you so much. I don't know why you tune in on YouTube and watch me. It's probably not for me. It's probably for you. But friends, this is my friend Susan Coleman. She is a dear friend of mine, crazy accomplished. Her resume doesn't even make sense. So I can't wait for you to meet her and know her and learn more about her story. But Susan, thank you so much for being here.
Gordon, thank you. Oh my goodness, talk about resumes. Yours is looking pretty good.
It's like a patchwork quilt.
You do. Oh, right. No, you're doing so much for our community, and I mean that's what it's all about, right?
It is. It's nice, and I want to get you to give a chance to give your bio in a minute, but it's nice to be in a place where I can do individual things for the community, or I can partner with wonderful folks like you. And then we're in a wonderful time where you can see impact being made.
Yes. And
not all the time. We know that, and I would love to hear that. I want to hear your answer to that when you don't see impact. But when you do get to serve, or you get to do something, and people come back to you later and say thank you so much, it means a lot. Don't do it for that. Don't do it for the pats in the back. But when you get to make an impact, and you know that God's blessing what you've done, it means a ton. It really does.
It does. It's your why, right? It's
the
reason I get up in the morning. I hit it hard during the day. I do it for my kids. I do it for the family. But, it's if you can't do what you're passionate about, you might as well not do anything at all, because you're going to be exhausted. You won't last. Longevity's not there.
I was talking to a coaching client of mine just this week, actually, and I told them, they were talking about passion.
Yes.
And I said a passionless life is a miserable life.
Yes.
And you might have a passion, but if you don't get to exercise it or grow it, or if you don't get to capitalize on it, it really is miserable, because you're really just not where you know that you've been designed to work and to function.
I can do anything for a little while, but
that's the truth.
right?
Yeah, and I've done it sometimes. I've done it too long, a few times.
For the wrong reasons, the wrong season, no, I don't want to do that anymore.
So, well, almost everyone locally knows you. You just met someone a minute ago, so maybe not, but a lot of people know you. But a lot of people who listen to the podcast may not, because they don't have the privilege of being here in the Fredericksburg area. So if you don't mind, give me the quick introduction of who you are.
Yeah, so this will be quick. I'm Susan Coleman.
Mm-hmm.
I have lived in Fredericksburg for 29 years. It'll be 29 years in August.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's why people know me, because I'm old.
Just stop it.
I've been here a long time. But I started out my career in banking,
mm-hmm.
And I was banking for 25 years or so. I work for Spotsylvania Regional Medical Center, HCA.
Yep.
I've been there 8 years. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications. And I am also a John C. Maxwell life coach, teacher, speaker, and I also work with businesses. And my passion, as we were talking
mm-hmm.
about that, is to help people and organizations become all that they were created to be. So that's fulfilling that mission in an organizational setting. I love being in healthcare and seeing the lives change. And then on a personal level with life coaching, it's about seeing lives change. So it all aligns. It sounds a little crazy, but it's what I love doing.
It makes sense to me. So I haven't told you. I'm going to tell you this. This is fun. I've told you a few things. Susan, you are like a reputation barometer. Here's what I mean by that. If I bump into someone and they don't like you, I immediately distrust them. Like, why would anybody not like you? I mean, like, who's got something? I mean, and you know what? I've never met a single person that says, "Oh, Susan, she's a mess." Never met anybody along those lines. Sharing that with you, you've got a fantastic reputation. Reputations are so hard to earn, and they're very easy to lose. So, how can you attribute? I mean, you do. You've got a fantastic reputation. How have you done it? How have you earned? I mean, I got a bunch of people who don't like me. I mean, how have you earned such a stellar reputation?
Well, thank you. First of all, I don't know, and I hope nobody doesn't like me, but there are going to be people who are not going to agree with you, right?
Sure.
They're not going to like the way that you approach things or something about you. And believe me, when I was a child, I had lots of those. So thank goodness I've come to a different place. But today, I was talking to a group, And we were talking about your why, knowing your why,
Right.
and then how do you discover your why? And we were talking about those guiding principles. So my 3 top guiding principles are something that I want with anyone I deal with and anyone that deals with me to receive that. Where I work at Spotsylvania Regional Medical Center,
Right.
I want it to be there, and it's authenticity, and it's trust. It's those things that are just so core to my. So I don't want to do anything anywhere with anyone
Right.
unless I am in that place where I'm giving that and people can trust me and they know that they can count on me. You know, as a kid growing up, my parents were divorced and my mom raised 3 kids on her own.
Wow.
And she was from a foreign country, Germany,
Mhm.
and she's my shero, right?
Mhm.
She's
Awesome.
the woman, she did all these things. And we didn't have a lot of people that, she didn't have a lot of trust.
Right.
She didn't have,
Right.
this great, phenomenal team around her or this village,
Right.
to help
Right.
raise us and that kind of thing. And so I think not having that somehow and growing up in my life and my career, I've compensated for that. And I've always been this kid who's always wanted to help, always wanted to listen to people and how can I help you?
So you mentioned, and maybe you'll feel like comfortable sharing it with it. Feel free to say no. You said you have 3 guiding principles.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Do you feel comfortable? Are they private? Do you share your 3 guiding principles?
No.
Okay.
So trust is really big. You've got to have trust in there, and it really is the foundation of my guiding principles. And then the other one is authenticity. So authenticity is not what most people might think it is. It is that, Gordon, you're going to mess up. I'm going to mess up. And you know what? That's okay.
Right.
Because in real relationships and real work and if I'm really reaching my dream, I'm going to fail. I'm going to get up
Right.
and do it again.
Right.
So having that authenticity and accountability piece. And so the accountability is more of that, when you're keeping it real and being accountable, you know where you stand.
Okay.
Someone's holding me accountable. It's not just we all do what we want to do, or I can align with companies that are really being true to their clients,
Right.
delivering what they say they're going to deliver, and if they can't, and sometimes you can't
Sure,
do it
sure.
all, but they make good on that. So you're getting that kind of thing. So it's just really important that we be what we want to see in others. So oftentimes when I'm coaching someone or something, they're like, I don't really have any friends. You'd be surprised. Executives, it's a very
Sure.
lonely
No,
place,
I understand
right?
that.
You
Sure,
understand,
I
right?
do.
So, I don't really have any friends. I don't really, I need or want something, and I'll say, you've got to be that which you want. So if you're looking for those types of relationships, you've got to put yourself out there and be that.
Right.
So if I'm looking for authenticity in my workplace, then I've got to show up and I've got to be authentic.
Right. And so trust,
Trust.
and authenticity.
That
Okay.
that accountability.
And so what's that third one then?
Accountability.
Accountability. So
Accountability.
accountability is that person that you give the right
To breathe into
to say.
your
That's
life.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. I mean, there's a couple of people. There's levels of accountability, sure.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
there's a couple people in my life that have full privilege,
Yes.
that can say literally anything.
Yes.
And then there's others that you give measures of like, hey, will you make sure I get this report to you on Friday? But
Exactly. In the workplace, in your organization, you might own your own company. You want your employees to be able, your colleagues, your staff, to be able to be honest with you. And so with that, accountability comes. Hey, Gordon, you told us we had to have this done, but we didn't get the report from you to
right.
do whatever,
That's right.
right? Whatever it might be. So that's one level of it. But then what you're talking about is this thing where you have people who are influencers in your life, right? There's so many people that you can let in, and not everybody needs to know your whole story. Not everybody needs to be influencing you, because you might have a dream that's bigger than something
Right.
some people can understand.
Sure.
And not everybody's going to go along with you. So that I get, right? There's certain people you need to know that they've got your back.
Yeah.
They'll hold you accountable. You trust them. It's authenticity, and that accountability piece comes in from, okay, Gordon, you might not like what I'm going to say, or Gordon, I don't care if nobody else believes in what you're doing. You go out there. Somebody who believes in you can support you in that way.
I think I've been fortunate in my life is I've been marked by mentors.
Yes.
I've been fortunate. I mean,
Yes.
I have, and I'm also fortunate that I've got a couple of people in my life who are those accountability people
Yes.
who say that. And I remember when I was making the transition from full-time ministry to full-time with Capitalize, and you walked with me a lot through that.
Yeah.
But one friend in particular,
Yes.
who's a minister,
Yes.
who has that freedom in my life, and we got together, and he knew it was an option.
Yes.
And I remember telling him, and this is someone my own age, we're shoulder to shoulder,
Yes.
and I told him, I said, I'm going to do this. It's like, but I will tell you right now, I will die if it kills our friendship.
Oh.
I was like, I can't, I won't be able to do it. Like if because we won't be, I'm not a day-to-day minister, and that's what he's doing.
Yes.
And because that level of accountability is a great area of vulnerability. Like if you're going to be accountable, you've got to be vulnerable. And I couldn't imagine. I was like, brother, I can't imagine a year from now you and I not having. It's going to change, but I couldn't imagine us not having that relationship.
Yes.
And it's been waters that had to be navigated. But
Yes.
accountability is scary.
It is very
To give that much to someone.
So people who know me, and especially those I've coached over the years or whatever, I have a saying that accountability is caring. Because Gordon, if you care about me enough, you won't let me go out there like that. You won't let me behave in those ways. You won't let me drop that ball. You'll tell me when I have spinach between my teeth. You know, I mean, really, that's holding someone accountable. If I'm not talking in the right tone, or, you know, I really messed up somewhere, come alongside of me as a friend. It's a totally different approach when a friend comes alongside and says, hey, Susan, that wasn't cool.
Yeah.
You know, you really messed up here. And you know, I think you need to apologize, or, you know, we really needed this and you didn't do it. We all do that. We all have those problems. And the reason is we're perfectly imperfect. Right?
Yeah.
There's so much, and we tend to want to do more than we ever can. I mean, I know that's one of my things. And so even today I was talking to him saying, okay, no is a sentence.
You know, and I'm going to quote you on that once. I only quote people once. After that, it's mine. But I've never heard that no is a sentence. But it's 100% true. And I don't say no very easily. Yeah. And part of that's maybe people pleasing. Maybe part of that is the enjoying a larger bandwidth, or part of that is a desire to accomplish. Well, maybe I'll let you answer. I mean, why do you feel like people have a hard time saying no? Like,
Okay,
I mean, what do you see?
Yeah, well, it's something I've struggled with over the years. You know, it feels good when somebody wants to count on you or ask you to be a part of something. It kind of makes you feel included. So you ask me, hey, Susan, can you do such and such? I'm like, Gordon, trust me. Oh, he picked me. Like, you know, it's the whole thing. Right. You know, I think of Charles Barkley. He's standing over here. It's like, yeah, really easy. Pick him. But you picked me.
Right.
Out of all these people, hey, wow, that's great. So I think there's part of that. You know, as kids, we are rewarded for lots of things. Oh, you get good grades, pat on the back. Oh, he doesn't. As adults, it looks a little bit different. So I think it transitions into some of this people pleasing.
Right.
That's another way of getting those accolades. You know, it might not be an A+, but it's a pat on the back, or it might be a raise, or it's a attaboy, or come sit at the table with us, the cool kids table. It's all of that.
But we know if we say yes too much,
Yes.
we know we're going to fail. And we know how painful that is. Like, we really do. Why isn't that enough of a mitigating factor for us to say, I just got to say no right now? I mean, why doesn't that keep us from saying no more?
Because I think those people who love, like, energy, who are high-strung, who can take on more, who can, you know, it's not until they hit the wall. I mean, most of us do that. When do we go to the doctor?
Right.
Usually,
should have gone. How long have you had this condition?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So it's that same thing, and I don't know that I've actually figured it out, but I know that I've gotten better, and I have triggers, and I have those accountability partners who can tell me. But the other thing too is, you know, sometimes you say no, and they still want you to do it. You know, it's like, oh, you know, well, you don't really have to do it this way, and it's gonna be on your time, and you know, they make these conditions like,
because they want you,
and next thing you know, you're saying yes, and you don't even know what you said yes to.
So I'm gonna try not to turn this into a personal therapy session with Susan, which you've offered to me hundreds of times over and over and over again. But sometimes we've got the list of responsibilities and we're doing them well, right? And but we do know they all take up mental bandwidth.
Yes.
They take up space
Yes.
and energy.
Yes.
And sometimes we can, if we're honest enough, we can look out and say, I could let a couple of these go, and then clear up time or whatever the case may be. But sometimes there's still a temptation to go, but I'm doing it and it's fine. But there's not really that much damage or aftermath if we say no. What do you think the motivating factor is that sometimes we don't clean things up, that we don't let things go to clear up that time or space?
You know, it's procrastination. It's just another form of that. And so there's some fear attached to procrastination. It's the fear of, oh, if I let that go, I might need it later, or whether it's income or whatever it might be. So there's something that we don't know that's driving that. I just can't let it go.
Yeah.
But then when you do let it go, you know that feeling you have? It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the other part, there's a third part to this. The third part is when you do hit the wall and saying, this is where I call it eating crow. It's like, Gordon,
It's a mess.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I really should have told you no. I knew in my gut, but I really wanted to do it for you. But good intentions don't always come out to the best results. And so that's the hard thing. Then there's those uncontrollables, right?
Right.
So I think that's part of it, is when you're in it and you're talking to the person and you're saying yes or whatever, you don't take into consideration, or we don't as those uncontrollables.
Right.
Oh my goodness, my family's going to blow up. Oh my goodness,
Right.
my boss is going to give me this big project I didn't know about. And so then it's like, it looked good in the moment of planning. And so you say yes because you have a desire, you want to help and that kind of thing. And then when life happens, it's how do you navigate and just do all that stuff? And that's the reprioritizing that I think is really hard for all of us. Think about this pandemic. Now we're coming out of it. All these things are hitting us. It is really hard to know unless you're communicating on a really high level. What's the priority? So, you need feedback from some people too.
I think that'll take my question in a direction that I think I hadn't thought of going in, but what you said sparked. I was speaking to, again, another coaching client, and they're still wrestling with their own personal approach to business post-COVID.
Yes.
So one trajectory,
Yes.
and everybody's trajectory changed.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. It either went great or poorly, but nothing was the same. And, there's compassion needed because they have not been able to find the groove or to find maybe even the excitement or the passion.
Yes.
And you're in the healthcare industry. I mean, you're still knowing about people who are passing or getting sick. I mean, very much. How do you encourage? Because there's a lot of business owners who are watching the show, who are still bleary-eyed from what COVID has done. I mean, what advice? I mean, what encouragement? It's such a broad topic, but what encouragement are you giving to folks when they're trying to find their way back post-COVID? I mean, what are you telling them?
So I talked about this today too, and it's just funny, but that's how things work. But the power of the pause is really important. It needs to happen in businesses, and that's where we really don't take it. Individuals will kind of take it, and what am I talking about when I say the power of the pause? It is a stop. It is a stop, but it's called pausing because you're going to get back at it, and really taking the time to step back and look from a different perspective. Because when you're in it, you know you can't see all the things. But if you can remove yourself and kind of step back for a minute and then look at all the things that are happening and, okay, this was COVID and this is how I needed to operate. Now I've got to open my doors. Now I've got to change my visitation policy. Now I've got to, serve my customers in a different way. Now I've got to hire more people. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
It's the elephant, right? It's so big. It's in the middle of the room. You don't know what to do, but you've got to take that one bite at a time. So you then need to pause and really question your why.
Yeah.
Why did we do this? Why haven't we started this back?
Right.
Why would we wait? Those questions. Get your team around you. There's so much value in a team, and I'm all about diversity and inclusion.
Yes.
And so just having those different mindsets around a table and giving people the opportunity to share, even if their idea is just wonky and off the wall, there may be something you can glean from
Right.
that.
Right.
You just don't know when that person might bring something. So really doing that, the person who's struggling, who is stuck, because now it's post-COVID and it's like, oh, all of this really needs to do that.
I think it's hard. I mean, I think what you said is incredibly wise. It's difficult to recognize that, like, this is one of those times in history where it's not going to be the same.
No, never.
It's not a, I don't know, it's not a 2-week outcome from a hurricane. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And those have been difficult in places like New Orleans, of course. But this one's just, I mean, my children speak of it this way. They asked me about 9/11. Like, where was I? And, you know, I was managing the eye doctors, and we were right by RDU Airport.
Yes.
And, you know, we weren't allowed to get on I-95, and the airport was shut down. I mean, you know, everybody's got those moments,
Exactly.
right? Most people at that time remember that.
Yeah.
And my children have said, we think of this like that.
Oh, okay.
Because Meredith, her senior year, had the lead in Mamma Mia and the play never happened.
Oh, wow.
Like the week before the play, that, you know, had been a 2-year goal, they never did a single performance.
Yes.
You know, and my middle daughter was going to have marching band winter competition, and it didn't happen. The state finals didn't happen. And then, of course, you think about a whole year at home studying.
Oh, yeah.
And which none of that's been figured out yet.
Right.
And God bless our administrators and teachers who are still trying to figure it out. But they speak about this as this is going to be our 9/11 or the blow up of the Challenger. Those things where you were marked.
Yes.
And they really don't even know yet how they're going to process all those things.
Yeah. And I don't think some of these things we are going to know. It's like when you're in it, you know, you can tell the story really great, 2020, right?
Right.
But when you're in it and you're trying to feel it out. And that, again, that's why it's so important for like-minded people to get together. And what I mean by that is whatever your business is, whatever it is you're trying to do professionally as an individual or just in friendships and that kind of thing, having those people around you and really sharing that. Like, you know, I don't know what to do about this. I don't know how to be in post-COVID.
Right.
And having those conversations, because somebody else can see something that you can't see. But the worst thing is inaction.
Yeah.
Because inaction is actually action.
No, you're right.
That deflates everything, right? It is.
Well, I mean, oddly enough, if I think extremely personally about COVID, the personal nature of it, I have wonderful memories.
Yes.
You and I met on Zoom every other week for probably 10 weeks.
Yes.
We had fun with our children.
Yes.
You know, we went for walks. We, you know, we had movie night, and there was a rotation of who picked out the game. You know, those kind of things.
Yeah.
And then out of that came my decision to move on to the next stage of life. So I wouldn't say I have guilt about that. I don't. I'm very blessed and very thankful. But my perspective of that is drastically different than my friend who literally had 6 family members die.
Oh, wow.
So
That's totally
people walking through the exact same circumstance, and it means something completely different. So that leads me to ask you, how do we learn to speak to one another about a common occurrence that affected us drastically in different ways? How do we do that? How do we have those conversations?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that, because I think people are finding it hard to, when we're so, there's a lot of divisive, you know, and different opinions and thoughts about COVID. For one person, like you said, COVID can be something that was, it wasn't so bad, and we just need to move on. And for another person, it could be, are you kidding me? I think we should stay in mask forever, or
Certainly.
I'm having trouble. And I think those conversations need to be had, especially if they're your family members, your friends, and that kind of thing, but done in love. And nobody likes to hear that word. It's a soft word. It's, what is love? And everybody says, I love you. And
Right.
And I'm not, but when I care enough, I approach it differently. And when I don't approach it right, I'm willing to make it right. And I think it's time for us to come back to the table, to those people that we really care about, and say, you and I may not agree on everything, but there's no way we can. We're individuals. We have different minds. We have different backgrounds. You know, there's so many things, right? And like you said, those experiences on top of that cause us to think differently. But can I respect you enough and care about you enough that I'm willing to listen to what you say? I don't change my values, my standpoint, but I don't beat you up for yours.
So Susan, I'm gonna try to only ask you one more opinion question. Then I don't want you to feel like you're working today.
That's fine.
So people who come from a Christian faith,
Yes.
There's a command that we should speak the truth in love.
Yes.
And that's a guiding principle about what our conversations should look like.
Yes.
Now, there's a lot of applications for that. Mm-hmm. Some people, especially out of COVID, feel like, well, that means that if I'm going to really love you, I need to tell you where you're wrong in this. Mm-hmm. How can I love you if I'm letting you think and believe or act in a way that's wrong? I don't know if you've ever heard that argument. And the byproduct of that sometimes is a lot of arguing. And sometimes people don't feel loved by it. So I'm going to ask you a personal opinion, if you don't mind. If you don't mind.
And I'll share it.
So,
everybody has their opinion.
So how do you feel like a person can speak the truth in love? Does that mean you have to tell people that they're wrong?
So I've had to work on this a lot.
Okay.
I have to get out the judgment seat.
Okay.
So when you tell somebody they're wrong, there's usually a judgment that's behind that. Mm-hmm. So you're judging them on whatever that is that you're talking about. So getting out of the judgment seats says that I'm going to tell you how I perceive and what I think and what makes, like, this is my value, this is what I think, and this is why maybe I want to wear a mask, or maybe, this is why I voted a certain way. This is why,
sure.
And in that, if you want to share with me that there's some untruths in what I'm believing, then it's up to me to discover and take it further and discover those truths. But just because you tell me that, there shouldn't be an expectation that I just take that and change my mind and say, oh, Gordon, you're right. I want to be friends. Let's, whatever. And I think that's where we are. It's either I've got to be right and you've got to be wrong.
Right, right.
It's not this thing of, let me share with you what I've been thinking about this and some research I've done and from my experience and da-da-da-da. And then I say, never thought about that. Not really there.
Right.
Or whatever. But what comes out of that is when we're having that conversation and we're doing that is at the end of it, you and I both have to decide, hey, can I be in this relationship? Did I feel good about that? Did he respect me? People want to be valued. Did you value me and what I had to say? And is it something that we can continue in friendship and not feel awkward, strange, or, that kind of thing? Sometimes you do have to reposition yourself. The two of you are never going to come to terms, and it's just, if it's something that you just, one of your core values and you absolutely believe in, and you're not going to change your mind, and that kind of thing, and it's not going to make you feel good being around that person. But when it comes to family and close relationships and work and that kind of thing, we do it at work all the time. Mm-hmm. Do you believe in 100% every policy, every whatever that your work has? Maybe, maybe not. Mm-hmm. I don't know many people who believe 100%.
Right,
I will tell you this, and that's why I think if you're on a team, if you're in a workplace, and you know what the guiding principles are, you know what the mission is, and it's been decided. If you can't get behind those things, then maybe that's not the place for you.
Certainly.
And that same thing goes for friendships. If you can't get behind the person and really support them and who they are and let them be who they are, if that makes you feel that uncomfortable and whatever, then maybe you're not the friend that you think that you are. Because what we want to do, we want to change others.
Certainly.
So most of the time when I talk to a coaching client, the first thing I say is, I know a lot of things have probably happened to you in your life, and there's a lot of influence and that kind of thing, but I'm going to be talking about you. Mm-hmm. So it's about me as the person, and what can I change? Because I can't change anyone else.
Right.
And so looking for those ways of betterment of myself and best practices, that's what it's about. So I hope I answered.
Yeah, I feel like you've answered. I feel like you've answered it well. Discourse.
Yes.
For the last 6 or 8 years has been difficult.
Yes.
And there's almost not a topic we can find where we can say, no, the disagreements over that have gone well.
Yeah.
And maybe it's always been that way. Maybe it's just heightened with the opportunities for communication we have, because we have so many more avenues to communicate right now.
Yeah.
But speaking the truth in love, has become more and more difficult. And I don't think that's necessarily a Christian issue. I think a lot of people would say, but it's a driving force behind why so many people of the Christian faith would say, well, I have to tell this. If you want me to love them, then I have to tell them that this is wrong.
Well, what's God's role in that?
So,
that's what I would say.
Right.
You know?
So what role do you have? What part do you? It's a great question.
Yeah.
And there are a few opportunities where you get to say, can we still be friends and love each other if we disagree on this issue? And sometimes those are hard answers.
Well, and I would say, did God call you to fix that person? Or did God call you to come alongside of that person and be an influence of a positive light? So if you think you're right in how you're living your life, then show that, demonstrate that, be that light. Do it in loving and kindness. Kindness is a huge, big, powerful word. If we would just be kinder to people, even if we didn't agree with them, just extend common courtesy.
Right.
But instead, we think that, we have to treat them poorly because we don't believe the same way they believe. And I don't know that that's something that sets right with me.
Sure.
It just doesn't. It's this thing of, I can still treat someone with respect and kindness, even though I disagree with them. There's just some things I may never do, and that somebody else will choose to do. Now, of course, if it's killing and that kind of thing, with those extremes, right?
Sure.
We're not talking about those, but we're talking about people having different religious backgrounds, people growing up differently and having different values and things like that. Who am I to say that they're wrong and I'm right? But I do believe in what I believe, so let me be me and do my thing, and let me respect that person. And if it's someone that we have a kindred friendship and can do more, that's great.
In that argument or that discourse back and forth, a lot of people across the world would look to Jesus as their example.
Yes.
And one group would say, he gladly ate dinner with people he disagreed with. Yeah. And then another group would say, but he also flipped the table of the money lenders in the temple as well. And so Jesus is complicated. If we don't make him complicated, we're not looking at his example. So he did have both a righteous anger and then he had a wonderful righteous friendship as well.
Yes.
And I just, in my own confession, figuring out how to be both of those examples, having a righteous anger at injustice, while at the same time having a righteous friendship, even with people that you might drastically disagree with, is, I think, the paradox of trying to follow his example.
I think something that's just dawned on me that really has helped me through this at this particular stage of where I am, and having working at the hospital for 8 years, anybody and everybody can come to the hospital and get what they need, medical attention. We would not turn anyone away. And so that is something I believe in, and I can get behind that, and that is the approach that I'm taking in those relationships. Meaning,
it's beautiful.
But it doesn't mean that everybody is, I tell them all my business, everybody, all that kind of stuff. But it's this thing of, I can find beauty in any and everything. And just because it's not something that I'm familiar with or comfortable with, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have the beauty or that kind of thing. So I love that I work for a place that no matter what, anyone and everyone can come. And so I think we get hung up in our responsibility. Somehow we think we have to fix that person, or we have to care for that person, or that person's going to influence us and we're going to turn into something else. I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of different roles you can take. If you want to use your analogy, there's wonderful admin people who, none of this would happen if they weren't admin people. They're nurses, day-to-day caregivers, and they're surgeons. You can make a lot, but a lot of times we all just want to be surgeons.
Yes.
And I'm gonna take out that thing, but that's not the only role. And if we're all surgeons, they don't live. The nurses.
Absolutely.
The nurses are the ones who are doing all these other things as well. But I think sometimes, and forgive me if I'm making up analogies on the spot, but a lot of times we all just want the scalpel. Right. But people can't live if the only tool we have is the scalpel.
Exactly. The funny thing is when we do that, it makes us, like, you elevate yourself higher than someone else when you think that I know. Cause
I'm the doctor.
I know better. Right? And that's the message that we're giving to a person. And we probably don't mean that, but that's what we do when we say, you're not right, this and... Now, we
Certainly.
And, so there are certain things. So we're talking just in generalities of human behavior and people who are different that may, have grown up differently, maybe, just likes things that we may not be comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And so for that,
I mean,
just love them.
So, Susan, you've been a great coach already in this, and I don't want you to have to constantly give. So let me ask you this question. If you're going to coach people one-on-one, which you do, you speak today, you spoke to, 50, 100 people at the Chamber's, was it Women's Symposium? I just want to speak, and fantastic turnout. I'm very glad the Chamber put that together. And then you've got this role at the hospital. You spoke at our event. I mean, so where do you get your cup filled if in all those arenas you're giving? So just, where do you get your cup filled?
So I am a faith person, and so first and foremost, I pray a lot. Help me!
Right.
What am I doing now? No, but and I journal a lot, and my cup gets filled really through my family. And I know that sounds hokey, but honestly, these things really do work through my family. I've got a great husband. I've been blessed with 29 years of marriage this year.
Congrats.
I've got 2 kids. They're not always easy. I've learned my life lessons from them, but oh my gosh, love them so much. Never thought you could love somebody so much, this family. So I feel blessed to have that. And the other thing is, this thing of thankfulness changes a lot.
Yes.
So when I wake up in the morning, before I even get out of the bed, I am thanking God for life. I went through a big health scare. I'm a cancer survivor, and that scare really changed my life and how I approach things. I lost my mother at a very early age, so I had a sense of abandonment. My parents divorced, so that sense of abandonment kind of followed. And then, but still, we get comfortable, and I think I'm invincible. I was young, still young, right? But, all these things, and then you get smacked in the face, and it's like, hey, this can take you out. And my daughter was 7, my son was 4 years old, and I was like, what? I really have to change. And so not having my mother has taught me that how important people are in my life. So when I get crazy and I get so busy and I forget those little things, those niceties, and I want to have my way, and usually when I get bent out of shape with, especially in a marriage, it's usually because I'm not getting something I want.
Sure.
And so realizing that and going back to that place of, but what can I be thankful for? During that cancer journey, what saved me was I journaled a lot. I had a great, support group kind of thing. My faith, number one, and just thanking God for what I did have. I didn't have my health. I had the potential of loss of life because there were 2 other women who were, one was older than me, one was younger than me, and they're not here today to tell their story. And you wonder, like, oh God, why am I still here?
Sure.
So it's all of that. It does. But it's really that my cup gets filled when I see, people. It's always been this way since a little kid. Like people doing what they love or helping an organization, fulfill their mission. The servant heart. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm some kind of angel. I definitely am not. You can ask my husband. He'll tell you. My kids. But it's just something about that just fills me up. But I do get tired. But I try not to do the physical tired thing. It's one thing to be emotionally tired and that kind of thing because that's where I can meditate, I can slow down, that kind of thing. Physical tired, you can't, it's hard to catch up on. So I really do try to get a lot of good rest. I'm an 8-hour girl, want to go to bed. Yeah.
Good for you.
I'm
supposed to be an 8-hour. My neurologist tells me to get 8.
Yes.
I average around 7 at best, but it used to be I prided myself at 5 and 5.5, but that was before epilepsy and all those other things, and so that was what my doctor threatened with. He's like, if you don't get sleep, I'm gonna give you a lobotomy, and he wasn't joking.
Wow.
And so
that why doesn't it always come back to that why?
What was the only thing that was that and Amy threatening to kill me were the only things that made me sleep.
Good for Amy.
But I see it now, though. I do know, like in my health scare, I don't mean
Yeah,
just same amount as a grab at yours,
absolutely.
but like my brain will get tired before my body will. I feel like I'm just built for endurance. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But I do know when I get brain fog. I do know when I get cloudy. I know when I don't make as much sense. And like today was one of those days. So like I've got a twitch in my eyeball. That means I'm more tired than I should be.
Yes.
And I've got to find sleep.
Yes.
And rest and then hydration and things like that. So, well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. You've had a big day and you need to find rest tonight. So I'll end with this question. So I started consulting in 2003, which means I printed a business card and bought a cell phone.
I love it.
Right, and it worked. I made up a living off of it. You know, the old consultant joke was, give me your watch and I'll tell you what time it is, right? But you played an integral part, in helping me go from a consultant to a coach and going and joining the John Maxwell program and developing that. So would you just share with everyone why you think a coach is important or can be important to someone who might need it? Like, why so? Because you've given so much of your life to it.
Well, thank you. You know, no person, no famous person, you can look at all of the stars or whatever, they didn't get there on their own.
Right.
You know, the funny saying is, behind every great man is a great woman, right?
Certainly.
I still believe that. But
My mom's amazing, Amy, and I couldn't do it.
But there is always someone there.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about when your kids are small, whether you have children or your nieces and nephew, and you go to their games, and that coach that believes in them, that's sitting there and telling them, hey, go, yay, Johnny, and the people, there's something that happens to us that really lights up. But a coach really takes it to another level from what we're talking about, because that person is an impartial person who can sit down, and they're supposed to be a very active listener and helping you to discover those things about yourself and what you need to do. Right. You can't see it. It's so funny. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and she and I were talking, and we're both kind of in the same field. And, you know, we were just talking about life, and she's like, we can solve this problem for everybody else, but when it comes to us, you're in it, it's so different. And that's why coaches need coaches.
That's right. That's right.
We all need a coach. We need that person who can have that viewpoint from another level and really just have our best interests at heart, help us unlock those places we need to unlock, find those tools we need to find, and really step out in the way that we need to step out. So I've heard people say, oh, coaches just cheer you on. It's not it at all. It really isn't. If you want a cheerleader, stick with your mama. You know, your dad, somebody like that.
So.
Yeah, you know, I mean,
that's
and that's great. We want that too, but coaches do far more than that. They really challenge you and become an accountability person in your life.
When you do this for a profession, or if you're going to take someone's money to be a coach, I mean, people will say to you, there's a million coaches out there. And if someone asked me if we need more coaches, I would say no, we need more good coaches.
Yes. Yeah.
We need. I mean, because you do. You look at Tom Brady, he couldn't have done it without Belichick, or Jordan couldn't have done it without Phil Jackson. I mean, even the people that we look at that are just absolute, achievers, did not do it themselves.
No.
They did not do it themselves.
No.
So I agree with you. A good coach will make a phenomenal difference. And I know you've heard a little bit of my story about how those people have poured into me, and doesn't mean you're always going to agree with them.
No.
Doesn't mean you're always even going to get along.
Right.
But that may just very well mean that.
And a coach doesn't have all the answers.
Right.
And they're not supposed to.
So, Susan, how can people find you then? So please tell everybody how they can find you.
You know, my love is working at Spotsylvania Regional Medical Center. I'm the director of marketing and communications, and I work with a phenomenal team, and I love that. I do take just a few clients, you know, that maybe in the evening or on the weekend that I can coach, because, again, my heart beats for helping people become all they're supposed to be. And I've worked with some nonprofits in the past, and I'll continue to work with some of the nonprofits in the area and helping them as well. But if people wanted to reach me, I do have a Facebook page, Coach Susan J. Coleman. I have a website, susanjcoleman.com. So they can find me there, and, you know, easy to find. Just go to my website, really, susanjcoleman.com.
Certainly.
Or, you know, everybody loves Facebook. Who doesn't love Facebook? I am on Instagram too, but so my priority is, just to live my life, invest in people and organizations the best way I can, and have some fun doing it, and really show my 2 young adults that this life is worth it. It really is, because I think so many people have given up hope.
Certainly.
And there's so much value in relationships and in people. I hope we don't lose sight of that. And I still have the hope for change. I really do, that things will get better, and we do our part, and that's the whole thing. Gordon, if you did your part and I did my part and those people over there did their part, how different would it be instead of doing this?
Right. You're right. You're right. Well, I thank you so much.
Thank you.
We didn't talk. We need to talk about your work at Spotsylvania Regional, which is phenomenal.
Yes,
we didn't talk about when you repoed cars. We didn't talk about when you were with Dancing with the Stars.
Ooh,
And so a lot. So at some point in time, we'll have you back on. But I appreciate it. So everyone, thank you so much. Please share this. Not for my sake. A lot of people need to hear everything that Susan has to say. Please find her at susanjcoleman.com. You can also find her on Facebook. I think we can also find you on LinkedIn.
Oh, yes.
But if you look for Susan J. Coleman, you're going to find her pretty much everywhere. Guys, thanks so much. If things go well, we've got another great interview next week. If not, it'll be just me. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
How do you shorten the time it takes to buy a car? Car buying just got easier. Pohanka365.com lets you complete as much or as little of the car buying process online. Pohanka365.com. Car buying simplified. Anytime, anywhere.